I'm Dr. Ray Middleton. I help people by delivering great training. Here's an example of an episode from one of my training courses. In addition to the 5 principles of pre-treatment, in his approach, Levy emphasises the essential importance of supportive supervision. Good reflective supervision supports and develops staff to do the work more effectively. There is a lot of emotional wear and tear doing this type of work. I've got burnt out a few times over the last 20 years, so I know this is a risk in this type of work, and I know how helpful supportive supervision can be, both from my experience of receiving it and of offering it to staff and managers. I find the best approach is a combination of one-to-one and group supervision in a team. But remember, supportive supervision can happen in lots of informal ways as well, such as buddying up for a visit to someone you're supporting with another colleague or with a manager, and debriefing informally and chatting about how we think the work is going with colleagues. So there's informal supervision as well as formal supervision. Whether formal or informal, or a one-to-one or in a group, the goal is the same. It's to build up a positive, safe environment of trust, to create a safe learning environment. This can enable everybody to feel safe to share about their work and the difficulties of the work, especially the parts that they're unsure about, because that's where the learning happens, and to reflect and learn from what's happening in practice in the day-to-day work. The challenge in building good relationships with and between staff in a team mirror the challenges of building relationships with the people that we're reaching out as a service to offer help to, because staff and the people we're offering the service to, we're all human beings, aren't we? So people are people. And so the same challenges about how to build relationships of trust occur. Research shows that healthy relationships are healing in themselves. We want to facilitate meaningful connections and relationships between workers and the people that they're offering help to, and we want to unlock the healing power of relationship-centered work. So relationships are key in this approach, and anything effective actually in this world. We can only do what we want to do with supervision, or co-vision you might prefer to call it, if we're building meaningful, trusting relationships and connections between staff and each other and staff and managers in supervision, because this builds up the trust. The goal is to create this safe learning community where people feel they can share their thoughts and feelings about the work with each other in a supportive way. This can enable everyone to get better at the work that they're doing by learning lessons from each other and from the day-to-day work, because especially in group supervision or co-vision. Jay suggests some great ways we can develop these reflective learning spaces. One way is to introduce some principles from open dialogue, an approach from Lapland near the Arctic Circle. And that's based on Bakhtin's ideas, Mikhail Bakhtin's ideas, is open dialogue. In an open dialogue approach, we accept we only ever partly know what's going on with ourselves and the person that we're listening to. We don't know everything. And that's a kind of humble position to take, but it relieves anxiety as well. We only partly know what's going on, rather than the anxious drive to say we know exactly what's going on. Well, we don't. We only partly know what's going on. Open dialogue discussions attempt to equalise the power, so everybody is put on an equal footing as much as possible in a discussion about the work. So we're trying to share the power out. Everybody's point of view is valued, and differences of opinion are welcomed. Differences of opinion could be opportunities to see things from another point of view. So do you see how we're opening up a dialogue about the work rather than closing it down to this is the plan, the action plan or whatever. We're opening up it and saying, have you thought about it from this angle? The goal is to open the conversation to more connections, and those connections might link to new ideas and new ways of looking at it, or new approaches that might be helpful. Opening up a dialogue can help us to think about increasing the connections that the person that we're trying to support might have to a wider social network, because someone might suggest something that we hadn't thought about before. Opening up a dialogue to increase these connections, I hope that makes sense, can help people's recovery, increase their mental and emotional well-being, because we're seeing it, there's more possible ways forward than we initially thought. This power-sharing, non-hierarchical approach really helps often in crossing those cultural divides that are important to think about, because we can be curious about hearing alternative perspectives from people as they journey through life who may have different values and culture than us. But opening up a dialogue says, could you tell me a bit more about that? We're interested in that. Open dialogue draws on these ideas from the Russian thinker Mikhail Bakhtin. Jay suggests calling supervision based on these open dialogue principles maybe co-vision instead of supervision, because it tries to equalize the power and avoid a kind of very heavy top-down approach. Pretreatment is about facilitating change in clients' lives, and at the same time, those principles can be applied to supervision or co-vision, because it's about facilitating change as well as maintaining staff's emotional and mental well-being. So you can apply the same 5 principles from pretreatment to the space of supervision or co-vision or group supervision. Whatever the change is going on, the goal is to develop a culture of teamwork and support and learning on the job. We want to encourage a sense of ownership and participation from everyone in the team building process. Often services encourage the employment of people with lived experience of the issues that service is trying to offer help with, such as homelessness, so employing people who have experienced homelessness in homelessness services, or mental health services do the same, or addiction services do the same. The same principle of good staff supportive supervision applies whether or not staff identify as people with lived experience of a particular issue. The only difference might be the degree of support needed, or the development of a clear, distinctive peer support role. If that's a specific role that you're trying to create in a service, you need to protect that if it's got a specific definition. But it's the same principles of supporting the staff apply. You want really good supervision and support for staff. In supervision, it's important to check in and ask if people's personal past experiences have been triggered by the work that they're doing. Have they been triggered into a fight or flight or freeze or flopping response by some of the issues the work raises up? And that goes for all staff. Seeing if people feel triggered by some aspect of the work is important, because this may affect their judgment and the way they see the work as they're kind of stirred up. So it's quite common for this to happen. However, it's a topic you can think about in supervision. However, this triggering from past trauma could apply to any staff member, and not just those people who identify as having lived experience of an issue. If someone is in recovery from addiction, for example, or other kinds of recovery, mental health, it's important to check out in supervision or co-vision, particularly on a one-to-one, that how the recovery is going, how stable they are, how well they're doing, in a caring and compassionate way. So you don't avoid the topic, you can say, how's it going? Because the work's quite emotionally demanding, isn't it? There's wear and tear, so we want to check how people are doing. As a principle, we want to support all staff to stay emotionally stable and centred and be able to manage the triggers and challenges that the work generates. So that's a good topic to think about in supervision or co-vision. Opportunities for reflective practice in group and one-to-one supportive supervision or co-vision is essential, because it can help staff to stay emotionally centred and healthy. And this in turn allows them to do the work effectively, it develops their skills, and it avoids burnout. Reminding everyone about the core mission that the organisation is trying to achieve can help organise the team around that mission and motivate the staff, because sometimes it all gets a bit like headless chickens and we've forgotten why we're here and what we're trying to do, whatever the nature of the service is. Remind people about it, and that can help in kind of group co-vision to think, yes, we're a team, we're trying to work towards this goal. Asking people about how they find a sense of meaning and purpose and value in their work, in the workplace, is a really good question in supervision, because it helps people to integrate the work that they do into their personal story or self-narrative. And connecting our personal story and our values to the meaningful work we do helps to build our motivation and encourages to have a sense of community with our team members, our colleagues, and a sense of teamwork. So do you see how we're trying to think, well, what is my values and my work? So a very practical example of a question you could raise in supervision or co-vision, one-to-one or in a group, is what is the most meaningful or valuable thing to you about your work? And this type of question can help people connect the work they do to their personal narrative or personal story and their values and this helps integrate, keep people centred and integrated and emotionally centred in the work. I hope you found that helpful. For more information about the training I can offer, email me at ray.middleton@ladderforlife.com or sign up for one of my free trauma-informed courses by clicking the link in the comments. Like and subscribe for more helpful videos, or post a question in the comments and I'll reply.